Hello, good afternoon, dear students. My name is Dr. Shuaib Mohammad Bhat. I am working as Assistant Professor in the Department of English at Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. Today in this video lecture, we shall be talking about stages of listening. In the previous lectures, we talked about listening, we talked about the meaning and definitions of listening, we talked about significance of listening, we talked about importance of listening, and we also talked about certain different elements of listening. Today we shall be focusing on stages of listening. So before we directly jump to the stages of listening, it's better if we just revise in a very short what listening is and what are the different things which we should keep in mind for effective listening. Okay, when I go with the listening, I would like to say listening is a process of receiving, interpreting, and reacting to the messages received from the communication sender. So listening, it is a process of receiving, interpreting, and reacting to the messages received from communication sender. Listening it's a very simple process. It is to receive the information, to interpret the information, and to react to the messages received from the sender. If you remember in one of the previous classes, we talked about communication process. In that communication process, I talked about 7 elements which we require for communication. Where the first element was sender, then it was message, then encoding, then channel, then receiver, then decoding, then feedback. So I need these points to mention here because receiving this listening, as I told you, it is to receive the information, to interpret it, and to react to that communication. React here means to give feedback. So listening is a process. It is a 3-step process where a listener first receives the information, then he constructs the meaning from that information, then the third stage is he reacts to that information. So three steps are involved there: receiving, interpreting, or reacting. So when we talk about listening, it means to receive information, to construct meaning or to interpret meaning from the information, and then to react to that information. Listening, it involves identifying the sounds of speech and processing them into words and sentences. So listening, it is, as I told you, it is to identify the sounds of speech. Because every language is made up of sounds. So there is not any language which claims that it's not made up of sounds. Language without sounds is incomplete. Every language has a specific set of alphabet, specific set of letters in its alphabet, and every language has a specific set of sounds in its phonetic alphabet. So when we receive, when we listen, we are identifying these sounds, and then we are interpreting or converting, or we are processing these sounds into words and sentences. This converting words into sentences means we are understanding them, we are interpreting them, we are constructing meaning from these sounds. So receiving is identifying the sounds of speech, then it is processing them into words and meanings. We can only process these sounds into words and sentences when we are able to understand them. When you are able to understand my language right now, then only you form certain words in your mind and certain sentences in your mind with their meanings. So better listening is to receive, is to process the sounds, is to convert the sounds into meanings, into words and sounds, and then to react to the sender, to send feedback to the sender. So can your receiver will know whether he or she was successful with the communication or not, or so that you can further continue that communication for specific reasons. Then this listening, it's an active, purposeful process of making sense what we hear. It's an active process. It is a purposeful process. A process of what? Process of making sense of all that which we hear. How can we make sense of the things which we hear? When we understand them. So again, listening is incomplete without understanding. Listening cannot stand if there is no understanding. And one cannot be a good listener if one is not able to understand. Listening itself means understanding. They are not two separate things. Listening and understanding is one and the same thing. When you listen to people, that means you are understanding them. When you do not understand them, when you do not pay concentration on the spoken stuff, that means you are hearing but not listening. Hearing, which is totally involuntarily act, where we do not pay attention to the spoken words, where we do not pay concentration to the spoken words, where we only do what? Where we only hear. The words, the sounds, they reach to our eardrums and they then travel to the nerve impulses but are not converted into meanings because that's not a listening process. So listening is an active process. It requires your active involvement when you are listening something. And it is a purposeful process of making sense of what you hear. When you make sense of what you hear, it means you are understanding what you hear. That is what listening is. Now, let's go with the definition of listening by International Listening Association. International Listening Association, it talks about listening and it says, listening is the process of receiving, constructing meaning from, and responding to the spoken and or verbal messages. See, this is the same thing which I spoke to you. Listening is the process of receiving. First step in listening occurs receiving of. First step in listening occurs receiving of information. The first step which a listener goes through is he or she receives the information. He or she receives the sound waves. Second, constructing meaning from. The second stage is every listener converts or constructs the meaning from the heard stuff. The words which a listener listens, he or she constructs these words, these sounds into meanings in the second stage. And the third is responding to the spoken or non-verbal messages. The third stage is to respond to these non-verbal or verbal messages. It is to respond to the spoken words. It is to react to the non-verbal messages. Because the messages which you are hearing, the messages which you are listening, they can be both either in verbal form, in verbal communication. It can be a verbal communication or it can be a non-verbal communication. It can be spoken to you, it can be sent in the form of written, or it can be conveyed to you with the help of certain gestures and postures. So this is what Listening Association talks about listening. Now, what listening offers you? What can you get from listening? What can listening give you? Effective listening makes us better students. It will make you a better student. When you are good at listening in the class, when you pay attention to the lecture of your teacher, of your professor, when you listen every suggestion carefully, when you listen every instruction given by your teachers carefully, so that means there are chances you will be a better student. When you are paying attention to my lectures, I may count you as better people, better students, because you are attractive, you are attentive, you are listening to me, you are trying to digest each and everything which I teach you. So better listening or effective listening makes you a good student, a better student. Then effective listening makes our interpersonal relationship better. The first thing you need to know is interpersonal relationship. Interpersonal means among people or within people. Intra means within ourselves. If I tell you I do intrapersonal communication, that means I communicate with myself. That means I murmur. That means I think more. That means I made some soliloquies. So that is intra, which happens within a person. Intra means within many people, within people. So within people or with people, we need to establish relationships. Why? Because every human being is a social animal. We require society, we require people within us. No doubt we have our own personal individuality. No doubt we have our own personal shell in which we live. Our interests may differ. Our choices may differ. Our taste may differ. Our ideas and opinions may differ. But we need others to live in a society. We need shopkeepers, we need doctors, we need engineers, we need astronauts, we need scientists, we need dentists, we need mechanics, we need different people in a society. So we are social animals, we depend upon each other. Now, in order to maintain this social relationship, in order to develop this social relationship, and in order to increase the chances of being a comfortable citizen in the society by making social relationships, we must cultivate the habit of listening. Because when we listen to others, so there are chances we may develop a relationship with the people. There are chances we may be closer to those people because we listen to them. We listen to them when they are in distress, when they are sad, when they are dejected, when they are ill. And we listen to them when they are happy, when they are having excitement, when they are jubilant, when they want themselves to be heard by others. So we provide them our ears, we listen to them. So listening, it ensures our social relationship. It makes our social relationship better. Then, effective listening can make you a better public speaker. This is, as I told you in one of the previous classes about this statement, the statement seems very contrary. It seems as if there is some contradiction with this statement. Like we have paradoxes which are contrary in nature, which apparently seem wrong, but when we clearly analyze those sentences or statements, they seem correct, logical. Same is the case with this sentence. Effective listening can make you a better public speaker. It seems a little bit different that effective speaking cannot make us a better public speaker. It can make better. It seems like it should be exercises for practice will make you a better public speaker. If it is written that sense, that sounds much logical. But this one is more logical than that. See, when we listen to others, it's not only like we are getting information only. Number one is, when we listen to others, we get information. But when we listen to others, we get more information. When we listen to others, we become aware of our strengths. When we listen to others, we come to know what I should apply when I speak to others. When we listen to others, sometimes we provide a lot of suggestions to people. Like you should use body language more. Like you should work on your pronunciation. Like you should work on your fluency. So when we listen to others, we become like we are analyzing people. So we are trying to rectify people. So obviously, when it will be our turn to speak, there are chances we will minimize those mistakes, and we will speak effectively without any mistake. So what I'm telling you, effective listening will make you a better speaker. Because when you listen effectively, you get extra stuff, extra content. You get knowledge, information. When you listen others, you get to know what are your weak points and what are your strong points. When you effectively listen to others, you observe their body language, you observe their facial expressions, you observe their eye contact, you observe their vocalics, you observe their tone, their pitch, their speed. So, all these things, when you listen carefully, when you observe carefully, and when you implement each and everything, after this analysis, when you apply this to your speaking, obviously there will be no one to stop you from becoming a better public speaker. So, you will be a better public speaker by effective listening. Then, good listening enables people to tell their stories. When you are a good listener, people will tell you their stories. Now, what will these stories give you? Now, you may answer me, sir, we are not interested in other stories. Why should we read other stories or why should we listen to other stories? No, it's not that story. It's not like you are listening it for fun or passing time. Every story has a moral, and every story will come you with a different message, with a different experience, with a different lesson. When you listen to people's stories, their background, their struggle, their attempts, so you will learn a lot of lessons in your life. Then, stage of listening process. Now let's go with the stage of listening process. The first stage is it is receiving, second is understanding, third is remembering, fourth is evaluating, and fifth is feedback. These are 5 stages of listening process. So you need to take these, you need to listen to these stages carefully and understand these stages carefully. The first one is receiving. What is the first stage which a receiver goes through, which a listener goes through? That is receiving. What is receiving? It is the most basic stage of listening process. When we listen, I told you we receive information. So the first stage is receiving. What an effective listener should do at this stage? Paying attention to the speaker is very important. When we receive information from the speaker, it is better to pay more attention to the speaker. It's very important to pay more attention to the speaker and to his or her message which he or she is sharing to us. Then, the listener must not interrupt the speaker. You are never ever advised, you are never ever allowed, you are never ever expected to interrupt your speaker when you are receiving the information. So at the stage of receiving, we are not expected to interrupt the speaker. No doubt there may be some query, there may be some confusion. It is better to wait so that we can receive all the information up to end. Because sometimes different speech, they carry solutions, they carry extra elaborations, they carry clarifications at the end. So it is better to receive the information first up to the end. Complete information should be received. Then the listener must not rehearse his or her reply before the speaker completes his speech. One more mistake which a lot of these listeners are doing, that is to rehearse your reply. Sometimes you want to ask a question to the speaker. Unfortunately, we are rehearsing that question in our mind before the speaker finishes his speech. So that's wrong. that will give you less information. By rehearsing your information, your question before the speaker ends your speech will let you to skip some important points. You may be skipping some important points when you rehearse your questions, your replies, your queries before the speaker finishes his or her speech. So it is better not to rehearse the reply, but to wait. Once you receive the whole information, once the speaker stops, then we can ask, or then we can rehearse before asking. Now, the next stage is understanding. What is this? I told you when I was explaining the definitions. The second stage is understanding. Understanding stage is that stage during which the listener determines the context and meanings of the words that are heard through a process called decoding. Understanding, it is that process where a listener decodes the message. When you understand, when you try to understand, you are decoding the message. So what you are doing, you are determining the context and meanings of the words. Now you are trying to interpret the meaning of the words and the context with the help of this process, which is called decoding. And this is the stage where the listener should plan his or her response. Now, when you are understanding the information, now you can plan your response. You can plan. You cannot ask. You can plan. Yes, I have some confusion here. It's better to ask. Yeah, like this. Yes, I got satisfied. I should pass a compliment. Yes, I feel the information is less. I want to know more information. You can ask for more information. But here you are planning this in your mind. For better understanding a speaker's meaning, a listener can ask questions to fill any holes he or she may have in the mental construction of the speaker's message. Now, for better understanding, a listener can ask questions if he or she is having any confusion. In order to understand better, in order to just clear all the confusions which are there in your mental reconstruction for that message, it is better now to ask the questions. It is better now to go for the clarifications so that you can decode message well, so that you can do justice with the process of understanding. Then is remembering. And in the listening process, the remembering stage occurs as the listener categorizes and retains information he or she has gathered from the speaker for future access. Now, remembering. In the listening process, the remembering stage occurs as the listener now categorizes and realizes and retains the information. Now, you received the information, you understood the information. Now, you make some categories of this information, like this is the main information, I should remember it at any cost. Number one. Number second, these are the supporting details or supportive details. No need to remember them. If I skip them, it's okay. Again, these are the points which are very important for my examination point of view. So you make a separate category for those points. And then you try to retain this information in your mind. You try to memorize this information for future access. Sometimes you may need it in your exams. Sometimes you may need it for teaching. Sometimes you may need it in your life in any context. So now in this remembering step, you are retaining the information for future access. And if the listener has been attending and understanding, chances are the result will be stored message. Now, if you are the listener, you received the message well, you understood it well, then only there are chances that the result will be in your stored memory. Then only you can retain the information when you have heard it clearly. Now, allowing the listener to record information about people, objects and events for later, this happens both during and after the speaker's delivery. This retention of speaking, it happens during the delivery of the speech, because sometimes there are people having higher IQ levels. They retain at the same time while the speaker speaks, and it can be also done after the delivery of the speaker. Because when we go through the notes, when we go through different written stuff, we can retain that information for future access. Then the next stage is for evaluating. Then we evaluate it. Like, the evaluating stage occurs most effectively once the listener fully understands what the speaker is. When you fully understand what the listener is trying to speak, then you try to evaluate it. Because we are humans, we cannot blindly digest or blindly trust people. It should be supported by our reason. We evaluate. Was it true or was it false? Is it really happening or not? Is it a fact or an opinion or an idea? So evaluation. So this stage of listening process is the one during which the listener assesses the information she received both qualitatively and quantitatively. Here in this listening process, the receiver assesses the information both qualitatively and quantitatively. You check whether is it good or bad, is it wrong, is it true or false. You check its quality and quantity also. How long the information is. Is it required for this topic, or is there anything which is irrelevant and you are skipping those things? Then, through the combination of understanding, retention, and evaluation, the listener gets ready to form a response. When you received information, when you understood it well, when you retained it in the mind, when you evaluated it, now you come to a conclusion which is supported by your logic. Now you start giving responses. The last stage, feedback, which is much essential for every communication. So, the responding stage is the stage of the listening process in which the listener provides verbal and non-verbal reactions based on short or long-term memory. Now you retained the information in your memory, you evaluated it, you reached to a conclusion, okay, this is this. Whether you agree or disagree with the message, on the basis of that perception, you are providing feedback to the speaker. It may be in the verbal form or it may be in the non-verbal form. Based on your memory, what you have retained in your memory, we provide feedback, we provide responses to the speaker. Then, responding usually occurs at the end of communication. It occurs at the end of communication. And completing the speaker's sentence is not a good way to respond. It impedes the communication process. Sometimes we complete the speaker's sentence. For example, your speaker is speaking something and you speak in between. You try to complete his or her sentence. That's not a good way of response, and that is not a response. Doing that will impede, will hamper your communication process. It's a barrier to your communication process to impede in between. Then, some listening tips are there. See, it all depends upon the listening. It's all listener oriented. A listener has to be active. So there are some tips for listening. There is an approach given by Gerard Egan. Gerard Egan is a professor at Loyola University, Chicago. He has given a model for listening, which is famous like by the name Scaled Helper Model. He gave it in 1998. He talked about certain points like squarely face the person, open posture, lean towards the person, eye contact, and relax. And this model is popularly known as solar approach. Actually, here S stands for squarely face, squarely position, O for open posture, L for lean towards the person, E for eye contact, and R for relax. These are the important points which a listener should imbibe in himself or herself. See, what S means, what sitting squarely means. It means When we sit squarely to listen a person, it means we are telling him, I am here with you, I am available to you. When you are sitting squarely and listening to me, you are telling me, sir, we are here to you and we value you, we listen to you. Then, if for any reason facing the person squarely is too threatening for the speaker, then an angled position may be helpful. For certain reasons, to face a speaker while sitting squarely may be threatening or maybe not good in certain situations, then it is better to go with the angled position. That would be more helpful. Then, what is open posture? It's better to adopt an open posture. Why? See, sometimes we are cross-armed, cross-legged. It is a sign of lessened involvement with others. If I teach you while sitting like this, so it tells you that there is not major involvement of myself in this dialogue, in this lecture. I should have an open posture where I can use my body language. And open posture, it says you are open to the speaker and what he or she has to say. It is non-defensive in nature. When you listen like this, you are sitting cross-legged. It means you are passive listeners. You are not giving the feeling to the speaker that we are active listeners. Then the third one is lean. It is possible to lean in towards the speaker. If it is possible to lean, we should lean like we should be in a bowing position. It's not like this, or it is not to lean totally this front side. There should be a little lean position by the listener, so that it says, I'm interested in you and all that what you have to say. When you lean a little bit towards me, it tells me like you are telling me, sir, we are interested in you and all that which you are speaking to us. So leaning back can suggest the opposite. Now, if you lean back like this, so that would be termed as that's opposite. That means you're not welcome. We're not in a condition to listen to you. Remember not to lean too forward. The thing which I told you, we should not lean too forward, or this may be seen as placing a demand on the speaker. Sometimes it may be termed like we are demanding something to a speaker when we lean too forward. The speaker may think you are demanding something from him or her. So he or she may find it intimidating. Your speaker may find it intimidating when you lean too forward. Then, maintaining an eye contact. It's another way of saying I'm interested and I'm with you. Remember, this is not the same as staring. Remembering eye contact doesn't mean glaring or this staring. You will need to look away every so often in order to not to stare, but to monitor the amount you look away. So eye contact doesn't mean we have to stare at the speaker all the time. We can look around, but we need to monitor how much we are looking around. It should not give an impression to the speaker that you people are not interested when you look away. So we can break the eye contact, but for the lesser moment of time. And it could say something about your own level of comfort and discomfort. Eye contact. Then the last one is relaxed. Be relaxed. If you are fidgeting nervously, it will distract the speaker. If you are fidgeting, it will obviously just make the speaker nervous. Being relaxed also tells the speaker that you are comfortable with using your body as a vehicle of personal contact and expression. Now, being relaxed, when you are relaxed, it tells speaker that you are comfortable with using your body as a vehicle of personal contact and expression. It helps the speaker to put himself at ease. A speaker puts himself at ease when you make him feel, when you are relaxed, when the listener is listening in a very relaxed way. Then There are some fallacies about listening. I talked about fallacies earlier, but it's better to know them. One is listening is not my problem. There are people who speak listening is not my problem. No, listening is a skill which everybody should know. Listening and hearing are same, they are not same. Listening and hearing, they both are different. Good readers are good listeners, it is totally wrong. A good reader may never be a good listener. Listening, it requires another set of exercises by which a person can be a good listener, and reading is different domain. That's a different skill. Smarter people are better listeners, totally wrong. Every smart person may not be a good listener. Listening improves with age. No, there is no such criteria that your listening will improve by your age. It will improve by giving more attention and concentration to the speaking activities. Listening skills are difficult to learn. It's wrong. No listening skill is difficult to learn. We can learn all the listening skills at ease. So this is all for today. I talked about listening. I gave you the definition of listening. Then I talked about International Listening Association, its definition, what it says about listening. Then I discussed with you what listening can offer you. Here I talked about some main points which listening can offer you. Then I talked about stages of listening. There are 5 stages. The first one is receiving. I talked about receiving in detail. Then the second one is understanding. I talked about understanding. I told you how you can understand the message clearly. Then I talked about remembering. I told you how remembering is the stage of listening. Then the next stage, which is very important, is evaluating. We discussed evaluating well. Then the last stage is responding. We talked about responding. Then I talked about Gerard Egan's skilled help model of listening, where I shared some tips with you, like we should always, when we listen people, we should sit squarely, we should have an open posture, we should lean towards the speaker, but it should be a reasonable posture. It should not be too leaning towards the speaker. Then in between, I talked about eye contact. Then I talked about this relaxing posture. I would like to stop here. Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.